Welcome to Pod Save America Live. We're here to take your questions. With us, as always, Priyanka.
Guys, this is exciting. All right, let's just jump right into it, shall
Great.
we?
We have some
What?
doodles here, too.
Can I just say that I am streaming hurt today? We did have halal guys. If you haven't had halal guys, there's the white sauce, then the red sauce. And the red sauce is very strong. And I touched my eyeball with some red sauce. So
Oh, no.
I wasn't going to cancel on you guys.
Got to put some milk in there.
John was like, pour some milk in your eye.
I was once chopping jalapenos and was told not to put my finger in my eye, and I did, and it was out of control painful. And our good friend Nikki Buffa found some milk and poured it in my eye, and it fixed it.
What was the name of the thing you were chopping?
Jalapenos?
Is that it?
Jalapenos?
That's the clip from this stream.
The jalapenos it is.
Jalapenos.
All right,
I
all
knew
right.
that.
Okay,
Jalapeno.
this
Jalapeno
first
pepper.
one.
Jalapeno.
Oh, God. Oh, God. All right, this first one comes from Robert. He is asking, what options do Senate Democrats have to push McConnell to bring H.R. 1 to a vote? What actual power is McConnell invoking to block bills from coming to a vote? Is this more of a gentleman's agreement that have so hamstrung that body?
Zero options. No options. This is why when you're Senate Majority Leader, you control the Senate. When your party controls the Senate, you have all the power. There is no norms, no institutions, no stunts that Chuck Schumer is not pulling. The Majority Leader has all the power. That is why the Senate is so important. That is why we have to win the Senate. That is why it's ridiculous that if we win the Senate, we should definitely get rid of the filibuster, because that is an example of a rule that is only there because it's a rule. But once one party has control of the Senate, the other party has very little power.
What he said.
All right, on to the next one. This one is about Paul Manafort. Please discuss the impact of white-collar crime sentences on our faith that the criminal justice system is truly fair. What can be done to change this abomination?
You know, it's a good question. You see these juxtapositions. Like there was a public defender that did a thread about all the like really draconian sentences their client had gotten over the years for, stealing a pair of shoes or like some silly thing that got you 5 years in prison. Then Manafort gets off on the first round of sentencing pretty light. I don't know that, like, for me, that the answer is getting really harsh all around. It's probably like rethinking the amount of time we throw people in jail for really stupid things, like they're just playing. For like marijuana offenses or like petty theft. I mean, it's insane that you would lock away, say, an 18-year-old kid for stealing a $100 pair of shoes. You're ripping that kid's life away for good. I mean, now that said, like, it does feel frustrating that if you have money and you can hire good lawyers, you can lessen a sentence in almost every instance. And maybe there's something we can do about that, but certainly does sort of shake the faith in the system.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, so Paul Manafort's going away for 7.5 years. He's 70 now, 69 or 70. So he's going away for a long time. And that is Judge Ellis has sentenced him last week, and it wasn't even part of the guidelines. It was way below the guidelines. Amy Berman Jackson sentenced him today, and it was more in line with what the guidelines are for that sentencing. But I do think I don't believe the focus should be on why isn't Paul Manafort being locked up for longer. I think it should be, as you were saying, why are all these people who are incarcerated for small offenses being locked up for so long? Like the United States incarcerates too many people, period. Whether you are a rich, corrupt criminal asshole like Paul Manafort, or whether, more importantly, you're the millions and millions of people who've been jailed for, minor drug offenses or other kind of offenses that are very minor. And that's what we need to focus on, those people who are being locked up for way too long.
Definitely.
I do think I think on the Manafort front, though, I think, the next president, whoever she or he may be, should focus on nominating an attorney general and staffing a Justice Department with people who are willing to go after white-collar crime more than we have so far in this country, because I think we've had a big problem in this country for not going after white-collar crime. That's different than what the sentences should be for those white-collar criminals, but I think we've had a problem with not even going. I mean, like, if we had enforced the laws and went after white-collar crime as much as we should, like Paul Manafort and Michael Cohen, they wouldn't have even been part of the 2016 campaign because they could have been in jail a long time ago. because of all the fucking crimes they committed that just went, unpunished.
Can we, before we move on from Paul Manafort, can we talk about the new developments today with the charges in New York and what the implications of that might be?
Yeah, so New York State charged him with 16 counts,
16
I think.
counts, yeah.
Tough day.
A lot of crimes.
Tough day.
Mortgage fraud, some other fraud. There's been some suggestion that the reason that New York did this and announced it when they did is to prevent Trump from pardoning Manafort. Because if Trump pardons Manafort today for his federal crimes, then he would still be tried by New York State, and Trump cannot pardon him from state crimes because a president can't pardon you from state crimes, only federal crimes. Mm-hmm. So there's an idea that maybe the New York, Manhattan district attorney announced this today because he wanted to make sure that Trump didn't pardon him.
So we'll stay tuned.
Clever.
All right. I guess we will switch gears to foreign policy before we come back to the U.S. Worldos want to know.
Sorry.
Worldos want to know.
It's like the boo.
Worldos want to know.
This worldo wanted to know your skincare routine, but you apparently didn't feel like answering. Whatever.
Honestly,
Okay.
water. I don't even use soap at night. I
Water's mine too.
I bar soap all around. When I
Wow.
run out of that, sometimes the shampoo doubles as a body wash.
I
You're
got
welcome,
3-in-1 body
people.
wash.
Whatever Hannah has in the shower.
All right. Good to know. This is interesting.
John had Pert Plus for a long time. I like Irish Spring.
Uh,
They sell it at Gelson's.
I use the Old Spice 3-in-1 that's like shampoo, conditioner, and body wash.
Who is it that used to hammer you for that? Was it John?
Love it.
Love it.
Love it.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe it's hot. Yeah,
A lot
it's
of
our
people
friend.
make fun of you. Anyway,
It's
sorry,
easy.
we digress.
Smells good.
3-in-1. That's a new one. All right. Alessandro wants to know what your thoughts are on the latest rejection of Theresa May's Brexit deal. What's going on there? What should
it's
we
bad.
know?
So Theresa May, the Prime Minister, UK, lost another overwhelming vote on Brexit. She was painstakingly negotiated this plan with the EU for like 2.5 years for all the ways they could still have relationships with the EU once they were out of the European Union. The Parliament voted it down. There'll be another vote, I think, pretty soon about a so-called hard Brexit, which would mean that they leave the European Union without any deals negotiated. That would be very bad. That would be very chaotic. There's another chance that they might punt it even further down the road and try to buy for more time. But like Ben and I talked about this in great length on Pod Save the World today. There's not a lot of paths forward, and there's a lot of very complicated issues, particularly around Northern Ireland. So
Sounds like they're just keep kicking this can down the road, but they have no idea how this ends.
yeah, I mean, they're set to leave March 29th. So this train is coming. And
So can they vote to give themselves an extension?
they can try to buy for more time, but it's like, I think a question of, that will probably be what they do. But then it'll be like, who will lead this process? And an extension to commence work on what plan to actually deal with that. Because no one's stepping up to lead. No one wants to like step into the breach and inherit this shit. I mean, Theresa May should step down. When you're the prime minister and your party votes against you overwhelmingly twice in a row, it's a disaster. But it's not clear who comes next. I mean, I don't know. Hopefully we'll get to a second referendum, maybe give them another shot at
So
this.
that's still a possibility, a
I
second
think
referendum.
so, but it is. Your guess is as good as mine, unfortunately.
Sounds bad.
It's bad.
Yikes. Okay. This one is about your interview with Elizabeth Warren. It sounded like she would basically continue Obama's foreign policy towards Israel. Do you guys think that other candidates would do things differently regarding Israel? You talked about allowing more criticism, but do you see actual policy changes happening with these 2020 Democratic candidates?
Good question. It's hard to predict. Warren and Bernie have written letters or signed letters that were calling on Israel to stop demolishing Palestinian villages and to generally calling on the military to exercise restraint. Bernie's been really critical of the Israeli military's actions in Gaza. Way too many innocent people are getting killed, especially children. So I don't know if any of them would reduce the amount of military aid we give Israel. I don't know if any of them would be tougher on the Netanyahu government if Netanyahu is still around. He may not be, in terms of a peace process. It's not clear. I do think that if you're looking for someone to the left of traditional foreign policy positioning on U.S.-Israel relations, I would take a hard look at Bernie and what he rolls out in the next few months, because he's got a interesting track record in history of, not necessarily eschewing to the party orthodoxy on this.
Got it. We'll stay tuned. All right. Speaking of Bernie, we're going to shift our focus back to 2020. We got a bunch of questions for you guys. This one is from Brian, and he wants to know, or he is asking, I understand that we all need to do our part to get the vote out, but is it fair to assume that the demographic who voted against Trump's policies in the midterms will vote against him in 2020? And is that not an advantage for us moving forward?
You got a dog.
Oh, no.
She on a headphone.
Oh, well.
Say you're sorry. Apologize to the stream.
Hi, Luca. Hi.
Goober.
No, it's not fair to assume that everyone who voted for a Democrat in 2018 will vote for the Democratic candidate in 2020. And in fact, past midterms have not been great predictors of what happens in the presidential election. And you could see, and in fact, I've heard this anecdotally, there are a number of voters who they could have been Trump voters or they could have been Republican voters. Maybe they didn't vote for Trump, but they're just Republicans, who in 2018 said, okay, Trump is crazy. I don't like Trump. And there's a Republican Congress, so I need to vote for Democrats to check Trump, to make sure that he doesn't go crazy. And now that there's a Democratic Congress in there to check Trump's craziness, I'm free to vote for Trump again in 2020. Do I think that's going to be most of those voters? No. I think we should feel good that so many people came out and voted for Democrats by such a large, overwhelming margin in 2018. But it should not make us think that we somehow start the 2020 election with a leg up, because, voting for your own Congress person or your own senator is much different than voting for a president. And just because we are all sort of partisan and live in this world where we're all Democrat or all Republican does not mean that most voters think that way.
Yeah. And remember, those were like hundreds of individual races where you got to vote for an individual whose views might have been more specifically tailored to your views than the general election nominee will be.
That's right.
Right. So we can take nothing for granted. In fact, we should be scared shitless about this election.
I am.
Most presidents get reelected. Period.
Yeah. We should be as scared as we were in between 2016 and 2018.
And the way you deal with that, with those odds being against us, is you start working today, and we don't all start working 6 months out.
Oh.
This is a question. I'm jumping ahead, Elijah. I'm just giving you a heads up. This is asked by Megan. She is asking if it's okay to phone bank or canvass for more than one candidate during the primaries, or is it better and more effective to choose one and throw all your support behind that person at this point, a little bit further down the line, especially if you care about electing a Democrat now?
I think it's an odd look to phone bank for 2 different or 3 different candidates. I would choose one.
I disagree. I think
in a primary?
I think at this stage, if you are undecided and you want to help a couple people get ahead, because you might not have picked, you could be in a different place, right? You might not have picked your candidate yet, but you might know that there's 5 or 6 you don't like, and that there's 3 or 4 that you're deciding between. And if you want to donate to, I saw a bunch of people are donating to Pete Buttigieg to make sure that he can get into the debate because they like him, even though they haven't decided on him as a candidate.
Well, that's a specific thing. If you want someone to be able to get into the debate or be on the stage by giving him $20 and hit that threshold of donors, that's fine. But I think, I don't know. You have to make a choice eventually.
Yeah.
You might as well choose the person you like now. And you can switch down the road, but it would be, if I were a field coordinator and I knew someone was phone banking for my person one day and then someone else the next day, it would make me question that person.
I think if you're positive about all the people, that's fine. Yeah, I think if you're slinging negative attacks on 2 or 3 different candidates, that's not good.
Fuck Pete, vote for Pete. Yeah,
right, but I think if you're positive, if you're honest and you're positive about a couple different candidates, I don't mind that.
Make a choice. Come on.
Oh, hey, Luca. Speaking of Buttigieg, Beth says she's really impressed with him, but he talks about a universal income Can you guys talk about what that means and what are the various flavors of policy, she says, flavors of that policy idea? What are we looking at here?
Universal basic income is the idea that the government gives every person in America, usually starting when they're like 18 years old, a monthly or annual stipend. And the idea is, therefore, no matter what, even if you don't have a job, if you can't find work, then you'll always have some sort of basic income. That's why it's universal basic income, so that you don't fall into poverty. I think Andrew Yang, who's running for president, this has been a big proposal of his. His is like, I think, something on the order of $1,000.
You think it's like $1,200?
$1,200 a month. The state of Alaska has had something like this for quite some time because Alaska has a lot of oil, and so they actually refund some of the oil royalties in Alaska back to their citizens. So I think people in Alaska get like $1,000 to $2,000 a year. That's not that much, but so a universal basic income could maybe be more than that. So that's the general idea. I've heard, and I talked about this with a lot of the economists that I interviewed for The Wilderness, and none of them really liked it, but all for different reasons. Like, some people said, okay, if we're going to spend that much money, now universal basic income, by definition, it has to go to every single citizen. So, like Gene Sperling said to me, he's like, my problem with it is, why are we spending money on giving Howard Schultz, $12,000 a year when that money could be spent on people who really need it? So the tough part about universal basic income is that it goes to everyone. I've heard other people say, I don't like universal basic income because it's just a cash payment, and what I really like is a universal job guarantee, so that you guarantee that the federal government guarantees that every single person in the country has a job to do, and that job could be, caretaker and a senior center, right? Like, you could make up all kinds of different jobs that the country could use, and you pay that guaranteed job, you pay that person with that guaranteed job a livable wage of $15. So they're also not, they don't fall into poverty that way. So at least that way, someone's doing a job and they earn through their labor, the money that they're making. But so that's a different sort of.
Yeah, I also feel like UBI, it's not a monolithic thing. It's not like a clear, defined policy. I think there's a lot of different ways at it. Like I was just reading about this, how Andrew Yang wants to pay for his universal basic income proposal, which is $1,000 a month, through a value-added tax, which is basically a sales tax, which is a very regressive tax because, if you're poor, you pay a sales tax. If you're rich, you pay a sales tax. I mean, it hits everybody equally. So it's just, I'm confused by the mechanics of the proposal and the financing of it. I want to learn more about it, but yeah.
It's also been tested out in different places, like,
Finland, I think.
Yeah, and or Sweden, I think.
Something like that. Stockton.
And Mayor Michael Tubbs, who we've interviewed before, has tried a pilot program in Stockton. So, look, the idea comes from a good place, which is in an age of automation, when so many jobs are getting automated or outsourced out of existence. What do we do for people who can't make it? And can't find a job. And universal basic income is one way to make sure that people don't fall into poverty.
All right, Elijah's got a follow-up for us. How about the mic over here?
When Sherrod Brown came on, didn't he also say that like a earned family tax credit is like functionally the same thing, or it could be?
Yeah, there's ways to do it so it's not just, so there's like refundable tax credits, which are sort of like a technocratic way of describing it. But I think Sherrod and I think it might be Michael Bennet have some legislation that would basically give every family out there a certain stipend every month. It's a tax refund, but it's refundable, so it's actually like cash. So there's all kinds of different ways to just actually transfer cash directly to people, which is an idea that it's like, okay, we've had all these government programs that try to help people, but maybe sometimes government can fuck it up, and the easiest thing to do is just give people cash. And maybe that's better than, actually going to apply for welfare benefits or food stamps or all this other stuff. So there's different ways to do it.
Cool. All right, this next one comes from Andre. Andre wants to know why there isn't more focus on the 2020 Kentucky Senate race. Every Democratic presidential candidate ought to commit to campaigning hard for the Democratic nominee against McConnell. Senate arguably is just as important as having a Democratic POTUS after the next election, he says. What are your thoughts?
All right, Andre. You better believe we want Mitch McConnell the fuck out of there. But it doesn't mean it's easy. He's incredibly popular in Kentucky. I think it's probably bad to assume that every Democratic presidential candidate would be wanted and well received in Kentucky and would actually help the nominee against Mitch McConnell, right? There's some people that would be problematic in the state or too liberal or whatever. So, it's not as simple as effort or inputs in that would get us this result. I think we are going to field an awesome candidate. Amy McGrath, she signed up.
I don't know yet.
So they're talking about Amy McGrath potentially running against McConnell. If that happens, we will do everything in our power from here to get her support she needs and votes, et cetera. But it's going to be a slog. I mean, Mitch McConnell is doing more harm to the institution of the Senate than anybody else. He is bought and sold by big donors and special interests and the Koch brothers, and he's just a creepy weirdo. But that's who the state voted for. I mean, it's tough.
Yeah, I mean, here's the deal. All-star candidates with outstanding messages can make all the difference in competitive races. But if you ran the same candidate in Colorado as you did in Wyoming, I guarantee you the Democrat would probably win in Colorado and lose in Wyoming because the demographics of a state, who lives in that state, how they vote, their voting history, what kind of population they have in the state, it matters a lot. And, I remember when we were doing the Crooked Seven and we threw Devin Nunes' district on there.
Because he's really dumb.
Because he's awful and we hate him. And we said,
stupid.
And even the folks that swing left, when we said we're going to add Devin Nunes, they're like, well, we're trying to make sure people donate to districts that can actually be flipped. And now, Devin Nunes' challenger, by the way, Andrew Jans, came a lot closer than anyone thought. But sometimes it is just very difficult to get over the demographics of a district or a state. That said, Kentucky is, I'd say Kentucky, Kansas, and probably Texas, because Cornyn's in better shape than Cruz was, are sort of the outside shots in the Senate for 2020. I think then Iowa is a possibility, but Iowa's still hard. Even though we won a couple seats in Iowa in 2018, the state as a whole, we didn't win the governorship, and Hillary lost that state by almost double digits.
Yeah, I mean, remember, Steve King is a white nationalist sociopath, and J.D. Scholten ran a hell of a good race against him for Congress in Iowa, and unfortunately King still won. I mean, there's some places where this is going to be hard. We can do our best, but we can't demand that people allocate time and resources to places that are a lost cause. And I'm not saying it's a lost cause, but it's going to be a tough slog.
Look, and this goes both ways. So one of our best pickup opportunities in 2020 is Maine. Susan Collins is, as much as we're all disappointed with her for all of her votes, she is incredibly popular in Maine. I do not know if that personal popularity will save her from the fact that the demographics of that state will make it very possible for a Democrat to win. So that's the opposite thing, where she's really popular, but it still might not save her. So I think the top targets are Colorado, Maine, Arizona, and then we probably need a fourth, and that fourth could either be Georgia, North Carolina, or maybe Iowa. Yeah.
Got it. I have a follow-up for you guys.
Follow up.
So would you rather? So would you guys rather see Trump defeated or the Senate going to to Democratic control? And this is my follow-up. Which do you think is more feasible if they have different feasibilities?
I want Trump defeated because the Senate can't bomb Iran.
That's perfectly said.
Got it.
I totally agree. It's too much. He's too much of a risk. We are beyond lucky that there has not been a horrible national global attack crisis, something like that at this point that he could fuck up really bad. He needs to be out of office as soon as possible. It just needs to. And I think that's easier. Because I think the states that we need to win, to get a Democrat in there, we need to win back Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Michigan, and then possibly flip Arizona if we can't get one of those three. And those three states are going to be easier than getting that fourth Senate seat, which is Georgia, North Carolina, and it's tougher.
Priyanka has been tweeting updates, which has gotten your wife really worried about what has been shared in this live stream so far. Everything's good, Emily.
I wasn't going to talk about Emily's responses. I was going to talk about Swing Left. They just responded to me and said they're already fundraising for Mitch's Senate challenger and for Dems challenging 7 other senators up in 2020.
Perfect.
We're
so
going to
check
raise
out
money.
Swing Left.
We're going to raise money for Mitch's challenger. We want to fight it out, but like it
just want everyone to be realistic about what's the most flippable to the least flippable, but we should fight for them all.
Also, Travis, who works here, got banned from the chat room associated with the live stream.
Travis, who works here, is not doing work and on the chat room. Cool. Great. All right.
Whoa.
On to the fun questions. All right. Connor wants to get a mini drag session on Jacob Wohl. Did you see the latest, that story from last night?
It's the best.
I saw a couple tweets, but I haven't read the whole story.
Okay.
Update us all, Tommy. Tell us what's going on.
Jacob Wohl, serial entrepreneur. He's one of 3 people that I know of who has built a business off replying to Trump tweets. It's him, Thing 1 and Thing 2, the present scenes. But
I thought you were going to say Crooked Media.
and you and me and John.
Right.
Krasenstein seemed nice, whatever. Jacob's a sociopath. So this fucking doofus and some other nutty Twitter person named Laura Loomer who got kicked off Twitter, and you've probably seen her like chasing Jack around and other members of Congress at hearings. They went to Minneapolis because they wanted to try to prove this like racist, disgusting conspiracy theory about Ilhan Omar to be true. And I'm not even going to repeat it because it's just like, it's so dumb and they're so stupid and obviously it wasn't accurate. So part of their little bit is they're trying to portray the city of Minneapolis as dangerous and like Sharia law controlled. So he has been posting pictures of himself in a bulletproof vest and like talking about all the security he needs. So there was someone posted a photo of a security guy from CPAC.
I love this story so much.
Who went up to here and was wearing AirPods.
Oh, I saw that.
One AirPod. So it's just hilarious. The whole thing's hilarious. So he, as part of his little drama in his own head, he posted an alleged threat from a direct message that he said he got. And in this specific quote was, "I hope you fucking know if I bump into you in Dinkytown or anywhere else in my city, I'm going to shoot you and shit on your fucking bodies. Get that fuck out of my city, you piece of shit. Period. Now, period." Reporters immediately figured out that this was an account that Jacob himself had created when he thought he was going to get banned from Twitter. So he was threatening himself. So
he threatened himself by saying he would shit on his body.
Yeah, get out of Dinkytown, pal. So
cool.
Again. So it's not clear if Jacob reported this threat to the actual authorities, because I think that might get him in some considerable legal jeopardy, but it's certainly funny.
Crazy.
Wow.
Yeah.
I hope we never have to talk about him again.
Yeah, I know. Like I always feel weird talking about him because he's like a dumb 19, 20-year-old kid. But come on, man.
Love the Vietor detour.
You know what we can do?
All right, this next one, Sonia wants to know if she could get a tiny glimpse of Crooked Media behind the scenes. What does a regular workday look like for Jon, Tommy, and other Jon outside of the recording studio? Is there a routine?
BTS.
What are you guys doing?
All right, so we come in the morning. We usually have a morning meeting, usually with Tanya and Sarah, just to sort of go through the day. Then there's sort of just meetings all day long. I don't know, meetings about new podcasts, meetings about we have a weekly news meeting now after the Monday pod where we all talk about what's happening in the news all week and
a nice
what
meeting.
Everyone's going to cover. And Brian tells us what pieces are going on crooked.com, and we talk about the newsletter, what a day.
Yeah, I mean, the rhythm's really day by day. It's like Monday, the morning is crazy because we have the pod recording at 11 a.m. So you like wake up at 6 and just study and prep until then and do whatever in between. And then for me, that afternoon and Tuesday morning is intense because I do Pod Save the World on Tuesdays. And then in the afternoon, I free up. Wednesdays, we do the live stream. And then, for you, Thursdays is another pod recording and Lovett that evening. So like our days are kind of staggered. But we talk about a lot of things that are months and months out, like our development slate. Like we're trying to develop a whole big crop of really cool new shows. And that's an ongoing process, and all of them are in different phases of getting done. Like some shows were actively have people on the ground recording things and editing and structuring shows. Other things are in like the deal phase where you're trying to see if you can get the rights to a show or whatever. Some things are even further out. You're talking about politics. We were talking today about what our plans could be for the Democratic Convention.
Yeah.
We're talking about all the Vote Save America 2.0 stuff we want to do.
We had a cool meeting about that.
Yeah,
last week.
You and Tanya and Shaniqua have been crushing very cool planning meetings. So like that resulted in the program we talked about a couple weeks ago about where we can all help.
Unify or Die?
Unify or Die. Well, there's Unify or Die, but then there's another program where we can help people raise money to pay for organizers to get trained this summer to be ready for the general election. So we're always thinking about that kind of stuff.
And then there's some fun things
There's a lot of mentions getting checked.
We, we have lunches, all staff lunches once in a while. We got town halls. We got happy hours.
Love a town hall.
There's lunch and learns.
Love.
And you should know that
Good town
about
hall.
every day around 5 or 6 o'clock, Michael Martinez, our senior producer for Pod Save America, will comment on the sunset. That is
Rate
outside.
the quality of the sunset.
We have a beautiful view of a Los Angeles sunset outside the window, and it really means a lot to Michael.
Who made
Jamie.
Jamie on our team, one of our amazing designers, made a Slack bot that if you say the word sunset, it pops up a photo of Michael Martinez in a cowboy hat. And we're not sure why, but it's really funny.
And then there's just doodles running around the office all day, and everyone's just playing with dogs.
Yeah, I would say for sure if you guys want to see what's going on behind the scenes, our Instagram is like place to go.
That is the place to go.
Yeah.
That is the place to go.
Elijah, killing it.
The Crooked Media.
I don't know if you can zoom.
The Crooked Media
I don't know
on
that.
Instagram. Okay, who would you say is the most and least tech savvy in the office? And Elijah, what is on your wish list for the new Mac Pro?
Wait, hold on 1 second. We gotta zoom in on that photo.
Oh, yeah.
You got it? All right, cool. Before Travis sends something terrible to my laptop.
Who's the most and least tech savvy in the office?
I have my answers, but
I think Tanya's incredibly tech savvy,
Oh,
but
yeah.
for some reason she uses like a Microsoft Pro that she stole off an NFL sideline in 2014.
I feel like the 3 founders are not that tech savvy.
We're Luddites, yeah.
well, you use Microsoft Word now, which is big. Or not Microsoft Word, Google Docs.
Google Docs, yeah.
Google
we're all
Docs.
like, because we're old,
Hate Google Docs.
we do Microsoft Word and track changes, and the kids just aren't doing that these days.
No.
No.
Obviously you guys are all, you two in particular, are very
Whoa.
tech
Lovett
savvy.
barely sits at his desk.
Lovett is,
I think
he's annexed the couch. He is a settler.
I don't know what that says
on
about
our
his tech
couch.
savviness, but I don't think it says anything good. What's your answer, Priyanka? Who's
Oh,
your-
I was going to say Luca is the most tech savvy for playing that song during live stream for like a year ago for the
Yeah.
old stands.
Well, then she ate a pair of headphones.
Yeah,
about 8
so maybe
minutes
she's
ago.
also the least.
Oh,
Sad.
little fucker. What'd she do?
All right, and then Laura wants to know if you guys have thought about strategies to stay sane next year, not lose our minds in sheer terror. Besides volunteering and working hard, what do you do?
I'm gonna try to stay off. I'm not even gonna say
Giant
it.
sigh.
I'm my resolution about using Twitter better is working. Some people mistook it for me saying like I'm just going to be on Twitter less. That's not going to be able to happen. But I am not in my mentions as much. I have not gotten in Twitter fights over the last couple months.
In my mentions is like the new in my feelings. I feel like Drake is going to do something in like the next. I like it. I think he should.
So I feel like my social media habits, changing those is making me still feel a little more sane. I don't know. What you got? Any tips, Tommy?
I'm going to get out of my own head, out of my own virtual world, and get out into states more.
Yeah.
Because in 2007, when all you guys were at the Chicago headquarters, like slogging away, and I was in Iowa, I was always in a better place than you were because I was like seeing people on the ground doing work and meeting volunteers and shit. And it goes such a long way to actually just be a part of democracy rather than tweet about it. So we're all excited to do that.
I had this moment over the weekend when we watched the premiere of the Beto O'Rourke documentary at South by Southwest. Just like there's all these like fights online that you're reading, even if you don't get involved in them yourself. You're just reading about all these people yelling at each other on Twitter and awful bullshit. And then we watch this movie, and it's mostly about all these volunteers and young kids who signed up for a campaign and how they're trying to, like, you know, build this grassroots campaign. It's so inspiring when people are actually out in the world doing politics as opposed to yelling about it online. So
Yeah.
I totally agree with that.
Yep.
All right. That was our last question, but Tommy says he has something to say. So the floor is all yours, Tommy.
Look, I just have one point of clarification. A few weeks ago, Alyssa was here, and we talked about an incident with a cat where when I was very young, my cat Snooper, who was an asshole, she was, jumped up onto the kitchen table and had a heart attack in midair and died. And I, you know, mentioned the fact that what was anyone supposed to do in that moment but laugh and then bring the cat down to the very cold basement to leave for my father to deal with, who was away on a business trip. My mom was not pleased with me for sharing this story. She thought it made her seem like she didn't care for the cat. Whether or not that's true, there's nothing she could have done for the thing. It was gone. Snooper was gone. Snooper lived a full life. She was very large. She weighed like 22 pounds. So I just want to apologize to my mother.
It's not your fault, Luis.
I love cats. We had another cat named Mouse who was very sweet, who I loved forever. One before that named Pansy, who was also great. I'm a dog and cat person, but
Me too.
you know, that's all I got.
Leo says hi. Leo's been quiet.
Leo was being good. He didn't cause hundreds of dollars in destruction like Luca did.
All right. That's it for this stream. Thanks,
Bye,
everybody.
everyone.
Bye,
See you
everyone.
next week.